Hello, I'm Maria Hall Brown, and this is LA Currents. 2,785 square miles, 20 cities, 83 unincorporated areas. Yes, that is LA County's 5th district. And today I am delighted to be joined by the supervisor of said district, Kathryn Barger. So nice to have you here.
It's a real pleasure to be here.
That is an enormous geographical span. I can't fathom. And then we were even speaking earlier that you also, as part of the supervisors, represent the city of Los Angeles. So how does one even begin? I mean, that sounds like the size of a small country.
So, well, first of all, yeah, little known fact that all 5 supervisors represent the city of LA. All of us, I think it's the only city in LA County that gets all 5 supervisors representing them. If you really look at the county, we are basically the mayor and the city council for the unincorporated areas. Mm-hmm. All my cities have elected representatives. The cities vote for us to get into office, but we collaborate with the cities and their elected officials. So it's not insurmountable. It sounds like a lot, but in fact, I love the diversity. I love the fact that up in the Antelope Valley, the issues that are plaguing that area are different than what's going on in the East San Gabriel Valley. So it keeps me on my toes.
You just mentioned something that I hadn't even thought of before, with the fact that you have 20 cities, and 83 unincorporated. So with these city governments, is there a lot of cross-pollination between the county board? I mean, is there sort of, let's all get together once a year, let's all get together a couple times a year, or when there's some sort of need you get together? What's the procedure with that?
Well, it varies, but what I try to do once a year at least is have meetings with my city councils. And we usually do it early morning, although I can do it at night as well. And I like to sit down and hear from them and find out what their issues are. Although it doesn't just happen at that one meeting. That's where the public gets to see us interact. But with my field offices, we have strong relationship with all of our cities and elected officials, and really try to keep communication channels open so that we can be really on the forefront of issues that are happening. So in the 5th district, we have town councils, and the town councils are, I guess, similar to what you all have in the LA City with the neighborhood councils. But they are volunteer, they're not paid, and they are the eyes and ears for me. So the town councils really are at ground zero when it comes to issues that are percolating in the district. And if we've got developments that are being considered, I tell the developers they have to go to the town councils and give them the first view of it, and then let the town council make their recommendation. I think it's important. I think it's important because while I am the elected that's representing them, I want people from the community that really do understand the nuances of what's going on.
Well, nuance is the word. And when we were talking also, I had that the budget for the entire county was $36 million, but I was completely off base.
Billion,
excuse me. Oh, if I had said that, it would be even worse. Yeah. But it's actually $44.6 billion. That is, that's an important amount of money to discretionarily use in the best way possible. So how is the supervisors, how do they manage that?
Well, first of all, a lot of that is not discretionary. A lot of that has to do with health and welfare and other services that the county provides, children and family services and hospitals, et cetera. But, the great thing about the county is we are very nimble. Our budget process takes place and actually is very amicable as it relates to the CEO presents the budget based on what each department submits in terms of their needs. And then we deliberate, we have public hearings to let people come in and talk to us about what their concerns are. And that usually centers around parks, hours, pools, quality of life issues in their community and how they want to see the true discretionary funds allocated. And so we do that. And so far, I mean, all the time I've been with the county, we've made the budget every year by July 1st. And so it's for this county, it's a large amount for sure. But understand that that a lot of that is social and well-being in the county.
And with all of that, all the good stuff, does come some problematic things. In LA, one of the huge concerns, both in the city and in the county, is homelessness. I mean, it's no longer just a problem, it's a literal crisis. It's top of mind, headline. And recently, you actually took some of these discretionary funds from your fund, $2.3 million to deal with it. So what is it that you were hoping that that could do, and what has it done?
Well, I allocated $2.3 million for the 5th District through my discretionary funds, or our discretionary funds.
Correct.
They're not mine.
Right.
And that is for teams that are going to go out and do outreach. And there are both a host, which is law enforcement focused, but also with LASA outreach workers that connect with services and housing. And I felt it was important. We're going to have 5 teams. One's going to be roaming throughout the entire 5th District, and others are going to be specific to the Antelope Valley, San Gabriel Valley, San Fernando Valley, as well as Santa Clarita. The purpose is really to do full-on, intense outreach in areas that we know the homeless congregate. It doesn't take a genius to know they're on our rail systems and on our transit systems, but they're also hanging out in our libraries during the day. That's where they go to get onto the internet. When it's hot, they go in there to escape the heat. So these teams are going to focus on developing relationships with those that are homeless, and really push services as well as housing. And I'm hoping that doing this with our communities, that's not going to be exclusive to just the unincorporated areas. We're going to be doing it with the cities as well. Is going to show goodwill with the cities because they're frustrated. They feel that it's gotten worse, and it has gotten worse. And I think that COVID has exacerbated it. I think COVID truly was the final nail as it relates to really the number of people that are on our street. And I don't think it has to do with housing alone. I think it has to do with mental illness and also substance abuse issues.
Let's talk about that, because I know that mental illness has been something that you have really, focused on and made a priority. How do you see the issue of mental illness when it comes specifically to, the homelessness? What can be done? What are you hoping that we will be aware of that we need to direct? Because I must admit, there's been an enormous amount of effort, energy, and money being put towards this issue. But maybe it needs to be divided up, perhaps, and thought about in a different way?
I say money alone is not going to solve this problem. We are bringing in over $400 million a year out of Measure H to address this issue. So money is really only a small portion of the problem. When it comes to the mentally ill, the laws, Leonard-Petra-Short Act has not been touched since it was written over 35 years ago. And I think we need to reevaluate the laws on the books as it relates to the mentally ill, especially danger to self and others. And we also need to look at the fact that there aren't enough beds. And there are not enough beds because of the fact that we can't get reimbursed 16 or more beds for mental health. You cannot bill federal government and state Medi-Cal, Medicaid to get reimbursement. The state is applying for a waiver through the federal government that will allow us to expand and actually draw down revenue. But hospitals are not going to take on additional mental health beds if there's no revenue to follow it. It's very, very, very expensive. So, I think that's exacerbated it. Law enforcement, when they're going to 5150 somebody or take them in against their will, to find a bed on any given day or night is very, very difficult. It's very difficult. And I think that resources should not drive whether someone gets access to a bed or services. We have a crisis on our hands, and we're seeing more and more people, especially those that are self-medicating by taking drugs, becoming more violent. And, I say, if you look at our jails, 70% of the people in our jails suffer from some sort of mental illness. And the question is, which came first? Did they commit a crime based on their mental illness? For many, that was the case, but they didn't have access to services. So we need to expand access to services across the board and expand the number of beds in the communities.
The laws that you were referencing, that are 3 decades old, is that the one where the communities were supposed to take care of all their mentally? I mean, I know that's with big, huge shift, went from large institutions into now everybody is supposed to take care of their own, and it just hasn't worked.
Well, that was the goal. I mean, John Sharon, our former director of mental health, gave me a little lesson and explained that, in fact, Kennedy began this process because President Kennedy's sister had been institutionalized. And he felt that with proper community services, you didn't have to institutionalize individuals, and he was absolutely right. And so that began the process of moving away from hospitalization and into community service, or community providers. Unfortunately, we let our guard down and we didn't build enough capacity in the communities. But yet we continued to push to close mental health hospitals. And that's where the funding, if you don't have the money, you're going to close. Right. And in the state of California, the last closure was Camarillo up in, and it was under Governor Reagan. And it was done because the ACLU was threatening to sue. But it was also done because there was no revenue to cover the cost of operating that hospital. And so it was closed. And we've seen the numbers go down. And yet in the county, we are the safety net. We have mental health beds, and we're continuing to provide the care. But those beds are full. And then complicate it with adolescents. We don't have enough beds for the adolescents who have a whole different standard of care as it relates to being hospitalized for mental health crisis.
So let's move into the adolescent crisis. I mean, there's also the issue of, there are these factors that, especially in this day and age, lead to a lot of mental health issues that may or may not be recognized in a young adult or in adolescence, in particular depression. I know that that's something that you've really, really been a strong advocate for awareness and help. What is happening in your district, and what are you hoping for the county at large when it comes to young adults and mental health?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to break the stigma and to let people know it's okay to ask for help. I think all of us at one time or another have faced challenges and have felt that there is no hope. But some are wired that they can rebound from that. Others can go into this very, very dark area. And with COVID, what we're finding with the youth is that because they didn't have the interaction, the socialization with their school, friends, for a long period of time, they are facing a lot of the challenges that, quite frankly, can really cost them their lives. And that is a frightening thought. So what are we doing? We're working with our school districts to put mental health professionals on campus and also educating the teachers about what to look for, what signals to look for with youth, and really trying to educate that it is okay to ask for help, and it's confidential. There are going to be counselors out there, and parents can reach out to the school districts. They can reach out to even community-based clinics as well, and just to talk to somebody and let them know how you're feeling.
How do we know that this crisis has developed? I mean, what are some of the indicators from the schools, et cetera, that, have brought these things to your attention? What's happening?
So the administrators and the teachers who really, the parents see their children first thing in the morning and last at night, but the teachers have them all day. And so the teachers are the ones that are noticing some of the signals. And also, one thing I want to point out too is we're doing peer-to-peer. Because who better to know what's going on than your friend who may see you acting different. You're starting to give away things that you normally would have cherished, and you're saying, I want you to have this, I want you to have that. There are signs that you can see if you are educated about really what to look for.
Wow. Another crisis, unfortunately, happening with the populace in general. Now this is anecdotal, so we cannot hold him to this, but my physician told me recently that the life expectancy has gone down. In the older population, COVID was definitely a factor. But when it comes to our youth, one of the reasons that our life expectancy has declined is because of fentanyl. Mm-hmm. And that has become more than anyone could have ever imagined, expected, and it's such a tragic nightmare taking place. And I know that is another issue that you are extremely cognizant of. And how can you, as a supervisor, combat that?
I got an education from a grieving father who lost his son. And I said, overdose. And he said, it's not an overdose, it's a poisoning. And he was absolutely right. This is not young people overdosing. This is young people taking a pill that they buy on the street that they think is an innocent pill that's going to make them feel high, and they don't realize that it's laced with fentanyl. And there is no quality control when you're buying pills off the street, and it's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking, and that is my largest fear, because these are not kids that need to go into treatment. These are kids that are experimenting, and for many of them, it's the first time. And so, what are we doing in the county? We're providing Narcan to all school districts. and making that available and training the schools on how to administer that. We're also making it available at our libraries, and for those that don't know what Narcan is, that will actually affect those that are overdosing and actually save their lives. It's I think sniffed, and it's been shown to save many lives for those that get it in time. So we are providing that to both libraries at all of our sheriffs are equipped with Narcan, fire equipped with Narcan, and now our schools are equipped with Narcan. It's not enough that we want our kids to get an education. Now we've got to worry about illicit drugs being peddled, and that's really what happened. And you heard about it a couple of weeks ago, where a young girl was found in the bathroom and had been poisoned by fentanyl, and they found that the pills were bought at a park next door, and were being sold by kids in the school. And they think they're buying something that is a narcotic. They have no idea what it's laced with.
This is an unanswerable question, but just to say it out loud, our children are subject to an enormous array of information and communication. It's not as if this has become a secret. It's not as if the idea of fentanyl being a killer and a poison has not been broadcast clearly, loudly, and without reservation. What can be done on the preamble part so Narcan no longer needs to be part of the school? I mean, I don't understand the idea of that. They're smart young people. We have raised an incredibly intelligent group of young adults because of the fact they have all these places to understand and learn and be aware of their life. What is happening?
Well, first
of all,
I don't know.
Well,
no, it was not that long ago. Well, it was long enough ago. But I think when you're young, you think you're invincible, and you think it's not going to happen to me. I get it. When I was young, I wanted to jump out of an airplane. Now, you couldn't pay me to do it. I think that as you get older, you realize just how vulnerable you are and how precious life is. When you're young, though, you think it's not going to happen to me. So what are we going to do? We're going to do education, but we're going to do education at a level that's going to be a peer-to-peer education, because if I did a commercial trying to tell someone not to do it, it's,
sound like the Snoopy
it's
teacher.
a parent, yeah. So we are putting together an educational program that is really going to, I hope, speak to the youth. But the reality is that they're seeing their own die. And if that doesn't really wake them up, I don't know what will, because that's how prevalent it is right now. In the school district, a lot of these kids know somebody who either overdosed or took it, and then Narcan brought them back, or died. And so I hope for many really does educate them about why they should not take any pill that they don't know where it came from. It's not prescribed.
I'm going to go into one more sad subject, and then we're going to talk about positive things, because there's a lot of really good things happening in the district. But another issue that you're very concerned about are veterans and the rate of suicide. What is the situation in that regard, and what can be done to help these people who have, served our country, who are obviously in crisis?
I say two things. Number one, you should never use the word homeless and veteran in the same sentence, and yet we've got thousands of veterans that are facing homelessness each and every day. The second is suicide. They gave their all so that we could basically be here speaking our mind and our freedom. And they come back and they face a lot of obstacles, and many of them are committing suicide. So we put together the first of its kind suicide prevention program here in the county, and we are going to look at what are the triggers, what do we need to do to support our veterans so that we don't have a high suicide rate. And I'm excited by this. I have an incredible staff member who served this incredible country, Robert Alvarez, and this is a passion for him. So he's been working and collaborating with the VA, with CalVets, and with our county department to put together a program that's really going to gather data and let us really fill the void for those that are coming back that have served our country.
Do you have an enormous amount of veterans in your district? Is it a large percentage?
Yeah, I mean, with the Antelope Valley especially, I have a large amount, as well as, I mean, I think the third district does too, surrounding the Veterans Administration, that area. But I think that across the board, we're finding that in the county, with over 10 million residents, I think all of us in our district represent a fair amount, especially those that came back from Vietnam.
Yeah, well, we owe them a lot.
We do. We owe the Vietnam vets a lot because they truly didn't get the welcome they deserved coming home. And I think it taught us that we as a country need to do better. And so I always make a point of especially thanking Vietnam vets, but also acknowledging that they really did make a difference for those that are coming home now. Yeah. And we embrace them and thank them for their service.
We need to do better about how we treat everyone, and I know that that's been something that we've really seen recently, and now we're looking at even more hate rhetoric when it comes to our Jewish friends. What can be done in that fine line between somebody has the ability to say what they want because we have freedom of speech, and then somebody has to stop because it is such a harmful, awful, and destructive thing?
Well, as an elected, I have a platform, and what I say can impact people's lives. So I believe that you have to live by example. And that's not just the electeds, that's also people that are celebrities, people that have a platform, or people that can make a difference. And I think that sets the tone. And I've made it really a point for me to never sink that low, and I won't. I will say that we can agree to disagree, and we may, but I always treat people with the respect that I would want, and I have very little tolerance for those that don't. I think social media has exacerbated the whole situation, and is quite frankly basically given people this ability to say hurtful things. I mean, I have a dear friend whose daughter was looking at Facebook and at my Facebook and was like, I didn't like the comments. And I said, I never read them because you're always going to get haters. And the reality is that that's not going to impact how I do my job. It's hurtful, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. I mean, I can't change people who are going to be unkind, but it doesn't mean I have to become like them. And so I always try to lead by example. And, in the county, we are funding programs that are really doing more outreach and education and really highlighting the fact that there's a zero tolerance for hate.
Yeah, it's really easy to say something negative when no one is going to actually see you face to face or say anything to you directly. So yes, I think we've all learned that the comments are not worth reading. Lots of wonderful things happening in the district. What are some of the things that you have been really joyously able to participate in?
Wow. I mean, I have to say that in the county, there's always something going on. And I think with COVID, hopefully in the rearview mirror, we have a lot of nonprofits that are once again opening up and raising money. And I have a soft spot for Children and Family Services. And so I've been going to a lot of galas that are raising money for Sycamore's 5 Acres, Hillsides, out in Santa Clarita Valley, Homes for Life, and Homes for Families, doing homeless services. So I've been busy really kind of getting back into that. Also looking forward to, as we approach the holidays, we're getting ready to do a foster event for foster families at Magic Mountain, which we do every year around Christmas time. And the park opens up for foster children to come with their families, and we give out gifts, etc. So this time of year, we're getting ready for the holidays, and it feels good post-COVID to be able to really look forward to some fun things ahead of us.
Speaking of ahead of us, so many spotlights on the idea that it was an all-woman board of supervisors. How has that been? How has the communication been? Do you think the board of supervisors has been somewhat altered, changed, enhanced, or has it just been, people with their head down really making sure that everything is as well as it can be for the county?
Well, each of us are different, obviously, even, in terms of our districts being diverse and the needs different, but we get along. And I do think women are wired differently, and so they approach problems in a far different way. It doesn't mean that if men do it, are not any better at it, but it's just different. Right. So it's been exciting. I mean, it's been exciting to be really the first all-woman board. When I started with the county, I was working for a supervisor, and we had 5 men. So we've come a long way in 35 years. But, each of us respects one another. And when we meet on Tuesdays, we definitely agree more than we disagree. I would say probably 85% of the board motions that come in on the agenda are approved 5-0. But then there are going to be those that we may not agree on. And getting back to treating people with respect, I can agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, I will cast my vote based on my district and based on what I believe is the right thing to do, and then we'll go from there.
Established maybe healthy change for the future, even if the makeup of the board ebbs and flows and changes as time progressed? Do you think there's been some good foundational things put in place with this particular board that will last for a long time?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that one of the exciting things is looking at really what we can do. The glass ceiling has been cracked, and we are now making sure that with that, we're opening it up and making it so that women are on par with the men that are getting paid in the county, because many of them started their careers later because they were raising a family. So we've made advances on really providing more opportunities for women and girls. We put a commission together thanks to Supervisor Kuehl, who really saw this as a vision that she wanted it to happen. So we've done that. We're also looking at diversion, and that really is something that I think for those that are in our criminal justice system, giving an opportunity to get into diversion versus ending up in our jails is a great step. It's not going to be for everybody, but it's an exciting program that actually DA Jackie Lacey began. And really put together, and so we're expanding on that. So we're doing a lot of amazing things in the county, many of which people don't realize, but at the same time, the quality of life, that it impacts their quality of life.
We don't have a lot of time, but when you talk about that diversion, is there a place? I mean, just like there was no there's no mental health, facilities. Are there diversion places being put up in, and is there funding? Because that's an imperative. If you don't have somewhere to go, you're just moving the problem off to the side.
So similar to the homeless situation, we have the money, so it's not about the money.
Okay, cool.
It's about capacity, and it's about finding nonprofits that have that capacity, especially when you're dealing with the mentally ill. Yeah. Also on the addiction side, we need to provide more slots so that people can get access to treatment. So the money's not our problem. It's actually building capacity in the community. We're doing it a little slower than I think many people would like, but it is getting done. And we're competing with each other because mental health experts are in demand. We don't have enough in our jails, in the private sector, and also in the county. And so we're competing even within departments for the same person to try to get them to come work, whether it be in the jail or in one of our clinics or even in our schools. So it's a little difficult.
This has been such an enlightening and interesting, and I wish we had more time, opportunity. I hope you will come back and tell me all the things that are moving forward.
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure. This has been really enjoyable.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if people do want to get some more information about you and about District 5 and about what's happening with the county at large, what's the best way for them to find out?
They can go to kathrynbarger.lacounty.gov and sign up for my newsletter, or we've got an area where you can write in and we will get back to you.
All right. More to come.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on this LA Currents.